What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. So if you saw last week's video, you'll see that I did some mods to the Sportster, and then we ended the video taking the Sportster on its first ride. And I had mentioned in that video about getting new tires and how FedEx really screwed up and dropped the ball. But the day has come. We finally have my tires here in the garage. So in today's video, we're going to be getting the Sportster on the lift, getting it jacked up, getting the wheels and tires off, so we can go take them to get the new tires mounted and balanced. And then also, while the tires are off, like I said in a previous video, we'll be able to put that lay down license plate on a lot easier with the rear tire out of the way and the bike on the lift. So without any more delay, let's get the bike on the lift and let's get rolling. Alrighty guys, so as you see, we have the bike on the lift. First thing to do is take out the little cotter pin that goes through there. Already went ahead and did such. You just bend it back straight and pull it through. The other thing that you want to do before you start loosening stuff is you want to measure out the distance here on both sides, because that is how you align your bike, or not align your bike, that's how you align the rear tire of the bike. So because the bike is new and the belt adjustment's still good, I just went ahead and marked my tape measure and checked it on both sides. So that's how I know, once we get the new tire on, where to align the wheel at. But nonetheless, to back these out, that's what we're going to have to do to loosen up tension from the belt. So that is a 9/16 size. And then as far as the rear axle and the rear axle nut, that's going to be 15/16 in size. So like I said, take out that cotter pin. You're going to have to loosen up these on both sides to put a slack in the belt, and then 15/16 to get the axle out. From there, you'll just probably have some spacers, and then the rear wheel will be removed from the bike. So I'm not going to walk you through that. Other than that, set you guys up on a tripod and let's get this rear wheel off. Alright, so you can see we got the rear tire off. We just had an issue getting the rear axle out. Kind of fought us. We had to put a screwdriver through and tap it through. And I think I know why. You might not be able to tell on the camera, but this is kind of like, I don't want to say rusted, but corroded a little bit. And I think that was hanging us up, where it didn't want to really break free. So we'll have to go ahead and clean this up really good and put some fresh Never Seas on it, because this is pretty overall dried up, which I guess that's to be expected for a 22-year-old motorcycle that didn't really move much in its lifetime. Good news is the wheel bearings feel good, but nonetheless, we're moving on to the front wheel. As far as the front wheel goes, we have a 5/16 Allen for the pinch bolt, and then it is also going to be a 9/16 nut on the back. And then, of course, screwdriver to go through the hole to hold the front axle. We have a 10mm to take off the front caliper, and then a 3/4 socket for the front axle nut. So get you guys set back up on a tripod, and let's get this front wheel. Alright, so as you saw, we got the front wheel off the bike. The only problem was the front fender nuts kind of were real tight with the tire. Probably could have just took the front fender off, but trying to take a little as possible off the bike. So my luck is when we get the new tire back on, we'll probably have to do it, get the new wheel in, but we'll deal with that when we get there. So real quick before we head out to get these changed out, I'll show you the tires that I went with. I just went with the Shinkos. I had these on my 2020 Sportster 48, if you remember that. I just had them in the white walls. My experience with running those tires were very good. They are very, very grippy. The only con is, the pro is they're cheap. Pro is they're very grippy. The con is they wear down a lot faster. So you naturally go through tires a little quicker. But nonetheless, I picked these up for around 220 bucks off of Cycle Gear. The reason why I bought these through Cycle Gear is I have a local Cycle Gear store like 10 minutes away from me, and you obviously get a pretty significant discount on mounting and balancing if you buy the tires through them. So that's why I did that. So we're gonna get these loaded up, head on to Cycle Gear, get them mounted and balanced, and then we'll pick it right back up with the installation of the new tires. All right, so we just got back from Cycle Gear, got the new tires mounted and balanced. But again, before we go ahead with installing the rear tire, I'm gonna go ahead and take this opportunity, since the whole back fender is wide open, gonna go swap out this license plate bracket. As you guys see, it's a straight up plate bracket. There's 3 Phillips in there, which you can't even get to. And then on the back side, you have those 3 nuts up there. And like I said, with the tire in the fender, it was pretty much impossible to get to. Could have made it work, but why bust your knuckles if you don't have to? So that's what I'll be doing. Now with the back bracket off, I'm just going to go clean that off quick and then figure out the orientation to put the new one on. So that is the custom dynamic layback curved plate. Once we get the rear tire and the front tire installed, I'll put my plate on. And then while I was at Cycle Gear, because if you know the Custom Dynamics, unless you buy their lighted curved plate bracket, which is like an additional 40 or 50 bucks, and I don't need that because this has light here. I just wanted like a little chrome license plate cover just to kind of dress it up where it's just not the plain plate. I was able to find one at Cycle Gear for like 5 or 10 bucks. And it looks like it's gonna be able to bend easily to kind of fit that curvature. So I'll show you guys that later after we get the tires installed. But for right now, let's go get those wheels put back on. Through my spacer, but the tires gotta come up a little bit. So at this point, we have everything put back together and just snugged up. We're just getting ready to put the tire clamp back on, and then I'm gonna go around with my torque wrench and torque everything down to the spec of the 03 Sportster. And if you're doing this, make sure you check your specific year and model for your torque specs. All right. Okay, got everything torqued on the front axle nut, the caliper, and the pinch bolt. So now we can move to finishing up on the rear. Alright guys, so I don't think I got the full video of us reinstalling the back tire because I'm pretty sure my other GoPro set up over there on the tripod, the battery died on me, so I didn't quite notice it in time, so might have missed part of the rear tire installation, but this wasn't a how to install the rear tire anyway. But we got the new sneakers on the old girl, as you can see, and then I also went ahead, installed my license plate and the new curved chrome bracket that I just picked up from Cycle Gear. The only unfortunate part is I had to use little washers because the little screws that come from Custom Dynamics were the heads of the bolts or the screws were too small, so they would go through the outer of the plate bracket, and they were pretty small for the license plate itself. So I found the smallest washers that I could. So when you're up close, it doesn't look necessarily the best, but from back here, you can't notice it. So that lay down curved plate looks way, way better than the straight up plate bracket. Yeah, you can tell it looks good there with the luggage rack, kind of just lays low key. You know, little mods so far on the Sportster, nothing too crazy. But like I said, that's kind of where we wanted to start with it, and we're making some good headway. The only other thing that I have to do left today that I can knock out is when I was at Cycle Gear, I actually picked up a handlebar phone mount. So I'm just going to throw that on real quick. Not going to show the whole install process because that's kind of boring. It's just a phone mount. But nonetheless, get the phone mount on there so I can at least have somewhere to put my phone to navigate me in places I don't know where I'm going. So I just got my phone mount thrown on the bike, and as I was throwing the phone mount onto the bike, I was kind of looking around at the bike thinking, you know what, I might be able to do another mod with things that I just have laying around, like parts that I've acquired over the years from previous bikes, and you know, stuff after you change out some mods, kind of just acquire some stock parts. So I went ahead and tried to see if I had enough parts laying around to make it work, and it turns out I do. So let me show you the bike the way it sits right now with what I just changed. So if you're looking at the bike, as you can see, I smoked out the turn signals there. I had enough smoked lenses for the bullet style turn signals laying around to do the front and rear, and I had the correct bulbs laying around, the 1157s and 1156s in the amber color combination to change over the front as well as the rear. Now, for some of you guys that might not be a big deal, and it really isn't, but you know, some things just satisfy my little heart, and that's one of those things that I just kind of just changed out real quick, and I think it looks way, way better. To me, it's the small little minute little details that really set some certain things off, and for me, that is one of those. So I think it looks way better with just throwing those on. However, the next thing I would love to do to this bike is change out all the lights over to LEDs. So if there's any LED lighting companies that are watching my videos and would like to email me or send me a DM on Instagram, it would be greatly appreciated. I will gladly work with your products and review them and test them out to let the world know how they are. Gladly, please let me know, because that is kind of by far the next mod that I would like to do on the bike. But with that being said, as far as today's video, as I forgot to show you guys the new phone mount that I got. Looks crooked, but it's not. Obviously the bars are turned. I had my phone in there and I have it right where I want it. So yeah, that is the phone mount that I picked up at Cycle Gear. It's kind of made by the same company as the law-abiding biker mounts that I've been using for quite some time. But as far as this goes today, that is about it for today. Now for you guys, it will be a couple seconds. For me, it will be tomorrow. For me right now, it is about 2:30 in the afternoon and it is 61 degrees outside. So you know exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be taking this out and start to break in the new tires. What's up, guys? So it is the next day. Said I was going to go out and enjoy the weather for a nice ride, which I did. I put about 113, 115 miles on the bike since yesterday. Everything seems to be running flawlessly. So that marks about 150 miles that I put on the bike since I bought it, which is now right around the time that I feel comfortable changing all the fluids, as well as changing the spark plugs out and kind of getting all that old stuff out of the bike. So let's get you guys set up on a tripod and let's get rolling. Alright guys, so as you see, we got the bike up on the lift. We got the oil pan underneath. This is a Harley one. You can get them off Amazon and stuff. They're all relatively cheap. I think the Harley one's only 30 bucks or so. I've had this one for years. As you can see, it's kind of beat up. The other parts we'll be using is I have a Harley oil filter wrench, which kind of makes the job easier. I have a flat tip for the hose clamp underneath, mostly because the way the hose clamp's currently rotated, I can't get a nut driver on, so I'll use a flat tip instead. We have a 5/8 socket for the drain plug for the primary. That's pretty standard. And then just some other tools we have for underneath the oil filter to kind of help keep it clean. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Most of the times they don't work. Obviously, we have a funnel to put oil back in. So that's pretty much it. Some of those tools you don't need. The funnel you'll probably definitely mostly need, but everything else just kind of helps you out here a little bit. I have a microfiber laid out for the derby cover. I also have a 5/32 Allen key for the derby cover, because that's what this derby cover just so happens to have. This isn't going to be a step-by-step oil change video, mostly because I already have 3 oil change videos on my channel under the Harley maintenance playlist. I have a oil change on a Sportster, which I will pop a card and leave a link down below in the description, where I go over how to change and check your levels on a Harley Sportster. And then I will also leave the link to the video on how to adjust your clutch, both at the cable and primary. I already did this bike last week, so I'm not going to make a primary adjustment again. But for you guys, if you want to know how to do that, I'll leave the link to that video that I already have on my channel, once again under the Harley maintenance playlist. So with that being said, we're just going to get rolling here. We're going to get the motor oil draining and the primary draining, and then we'll obviously pull the dipstick, pull the derby cover off, allow air for any excess fluid to drain out, and then we'll get right to it. So as you can see, there's a decent amount of metal shavings on this. Not surprised, because it's just shy of 1,000 miles, so who knows if it's even ever been changed. As well as it's 22 years old, and from what I was told, someone learned how to ride on this bike. So those are some hard miles, but nonetheless, that's why we're changing the fluids, putting the drain plugs back in and the hose back in, and then I'm just going to reposition the oil pan and go from there. So at this point, I got the primary drain plug all cleaned off, back in, torqued up. I have the motor oil drain hose cleaned off, put back on, and clamped up. And if you watched my other Sportster video on an oil change, if that's what you're here for, the only real difference from my 2020 to this 2003 is the location of the motor oil drain hose. I forget what year it is. They kind of have them up here around the side cover, and then the older models, it's this hose down here, comes down around the primary behind the frame, and then it pretty much just hooks on to the exhaust bracket, like kind of straight under the rear swing arm, straight back. That's the only difference. Everything else is the same. I'm just going to be moving right along the oil filter next, and I always just kind of put some towels underneath as well. I just break it free a little bit here, and then once I break it free, then I add this. And like I said, these don't always work. Anything's better than nothing. It is what it is. And then that drop down, You kind of just turn that upside down. I always use OEM filters. I don't know, that's just what I do. And I always use Mobil 1 V-Twin. That's just kind of what I've used in every bike I've ever had. Just gonna fill this up, let it soak in. Now that my filter pre-soaked a little bit, got the O-ring lubed up. And these I only ever just go hand tight. Now that the new oil filter's on, we're just gonna go ahead and might as well just top off the primary. It calls for roughly 28 ounces. You're not gonna be able to see, but you want the level just to touch kind of level with the clutch basket down in there. So that's what we'll primarily be looking for. This is slightly under 20 ounces, so I'm just gonna dump this whole thing in. So I need just the slightest little bit. Now that that's topped off, I can put the primary cover back on and torque all the bolts down. Now that the primary's topped off, everything's good on that, we're gonna go clean off the dipstick, fill up the motor oil, and then we'll change out the spark plugs as well as pop off the air cleaner. Dipstick. And if you don't know, when it's a straight dipstick, you have to check it with the bike upright like so. If it has a floppy dipstick, you can check it. Those have an option for checking it upright or on the kickstand. I added about 2.5 quarts in total. I got it registering on the second line, and my bike is leaning ever so slightly to the left, and I like to give a little bit of room because obviously oil heats up, it expands. I don't want it blown out of everything, so we'll call that good. So now we're gonna move on to the spark plugs and we'll pop off the air cleaner. So I'm all cleaned up from the oil change. So next I'm gonna be working on these spark plugs. So start by trying to wiggle off these boots. Sometimes they can be a pain in the butt. So first thing I like to do is a lot of the Harley ones come pre-gapped already, but I always just check them just to make sure. But what I like to do is put a little bit of Never Seez on the threads. And I always just like putting these in by hand, because the last thing you'd want to do is strip these things out. I just go till I can't get it anymore by hand. I like doing them one at a time. That way no foreign debris can get in. Now I got both spark plugs, the new ones installed. Like I said, got Never Seez on the threads so they don't come loose. The only other thing that I like to do is I like to just put a little bit of dielectric grease either in the boots or on the tip of the spark plugs, just so that way if moisture gets in, it doesn't hurt anything, so might as well just do it. That's a spark plug change. Now we're just gonna bounce over, check, see what that air filter's like, and then maybe just spray out what we can of the carb. Oh boy. Alright, so this filter looks brand new. I don't like these paper filters whatsoever because to me personally, it reminds me of being in health class trying to breathe through a straw. So with that being said, I saw Drag Specialties makes a reusable filter kind of like K&N. That's washable, reusable, and high flow. So I'll probably pick one of those up. As I can see, the carb doesn't look terrible, but we're just gonna go ahead and just kind of get some carb cleaner and spray it out just a little bit. So I wiped out what I can. We're just gonna call that good for now, because like I said, I put fresh fuel in it and I've been running it with seafoam mixed in. This is just kind of just a little maintenance item here, but nonetheless, we're gonna put this back together and then that will be it. Alrighty guys, so there you have it. I think that's going to conclude episode 2 of the sporty build. Obviously, we didn't necessarily build much. It was more of maintenance items, but we got new fresh tires on the bike. We got the license plate bracket installed. We got my phone mount on. I tinkered with smoking the lenses out. We obviously got the oil changed, spark plugs changed, the carb and air filter kind of inspected and cleaned up per se. So that's about where I'm going to leave it for episode 2. If you guys made it this far into the video, make sure to smash that like button, comment, subscribe, hit that bell icon so that way you guys get notified when I post new videos like this one, as well as continuing to post videos on this Sportster build, but also as we get deeper into the spring where I get my 2021 Road Glide out and I show you guys the mods that I've done in the last year to that bike. But without further ado, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Make sure to ride safe and peace.